In the past 3 weeks since Final Shaper's launch, we have seen some wild and unique weapons. We've seen a meta-defining sniper rifle, a sword with wolfpack rounds, bows with volt shot. On the weapon front, we have been eating pretty good this expansion. But today I want us to take a look at another very unique weapon, one that's tied to our very first episode, Echoes. Now these weapons are themed after what appears to be the main antagonist, the Vex. Of course, we're gonna dive more into that as the episode unfolds. But this one particular weapon is the one that caught our eye, and that is the new stasis grenade launcher, Lost Signal. Now this is a very unusual weapon. It's essentially a legendary Witherhoard. You see, Bungie has given us a new grenade launcher frame called Area Denial Frame. And the way this frame works is that it spews out several grenades that explode into pools, and these pools decay over time. And any enemies that are standing in or near this pool will take damage over time. And the pool seems to last about 5 seconds. Now, if you look at our footage here against red bars, direct impact damage does 1,777 for each grenade in the volley. This adds up to 8,885 damage for the full volley. Now, this would then explode into a pool, and for each second an enemy stands in a pool, they take a little over 5 ticks of damage. Now, each of these ticks deal 3,018 damage. That means with a total of 21 ticks that are possible in a single volley, assuming they're all put on a single target, that puts the total damage of these stasis pulls at 63,378 damage. And this is over a 5-second time span. Now, our DPS isn't crazy. 14,452. But the point is that this, for the first time ever, is a legendary version of Witherhoard. And Witherhoard has been one of the most popular weapons inside of PvE since it first came out. The question is, are there trait combinations present on this legendary Witherhoard, aka Lost Signal, that can surpass even that of Witherhoard itself? Let's take a look at column 3. We have Strategist, Stats for All, Quick Draw, Threat Detector, Lead from Gold, Feeding Frenzy, and Auto Loading. In our 4th column, we have Wellspring, High Ground, Unrelenting, One for All, Vorpal, Reverberation, and Demolitionist. Now, the 2 perks that really stand out in that 3rd column are going to be either Lead from Gold, which pretty much grants us free special ammo when we pick up a heavy ammo brick, and this is roughly about 25% of our reserves that we pick up, with the enhanced version granting an additional 10%, which is really nice here, guys. We're talking 35% ammo refilled simply from picking up a heavy ammo brick. And whether you're utilizing this with teammates that are rocking Cenotaph or Aeon Gauntlets, you'll pretty much always have enough ammo on hand to literally lay down these pools everywhere. And if you happen to be running double specials, Lead from Gold gives you a little bit of breathing room. But do keep in mind, when you're running double special, the perk gets its refill rate cut in half when you have 2 special weapons equipped. Now, our other strong perk, one that's found on Witherhoard that's really good, is Auto Loading Holster. This reloads your weapon automatically after it's been stowed for 2.5 seconds, with the enhanced version activating after 2.3 seconds. Now, what this perk allows you to do is run and gun. You literally run out there, spray your load of stasis pools everywhere, and immediately swap to another weapon to continue doing damage. And then about halfway through the pool's lifespan, you then swap back to Lost Signal to get off another volley. What Auto Loading Holster really allows you to do here is treat this weapon as a support tool. And I would say that if your ammo economy is something you can work around, maybe you have other means of providing yourself ammo, whether that's special finisher or just teammates themselves providing you special ammo, Auto Loading Holster is probably going to be the way to go. It's just so fluid in just about everyone's playstyle. Now, looking over at our right column, we have a couple interesting options, and I want to start with the brand new perk called Reverberation. Its description states that final blows with this weapon increases the size of its detonations for a short duration. And this perk seems like it could be a very obvious staple for things like an ad clearing grenade launcher, as that increased detonation size will only make it easier to take out groups of enemies. Unfortunately though, at least with this weapon archetype, it does not seem to increase the size of the pools on the ground. And guys, maybe I'm blind because we looked at this over and over, but looking at it side by side, the change in the pool itself, I just don't see it. And if it is there, it's super small. This effectively means that this perk is doing very little, at least for this particular archetype, and you're likely better off just using a damage perk. I actually think one of the best damage perks here is One for All. This gives us a significant damage bonus to our weapon upon hitting 3 separate targets, which is what this weapon is built to do. Those stasis pulls that are being left on the ground will be hitting multiple targets at once and can be spread out decently far if you time out the shot right. Looking at our footage here though, we can see the damage it deals to red bars, each tick going from 3,018 at base to 4,074 damage per tick when One for All is active. Again, that is that 35% increase in damage, simply for just using the weapon as intended. And if you pair this perk with something like Auto Loading Holster, you'll always have an incredibly powerful source of AoE damage ready to go at any moment. Now, for our origin trait, trait that is found on Lost Signal, as well as our other Echo weapons. It's called Radiolaria Transponder. This states that rapid final blows causes targets to explode into a pool of radiolarian fluid. Now, the origin trait spawns a small damaging pool after a short explosion when you get those rapid kills. Now, the initial explosion does 7,870 damage to red bars, as you see here, and the pool does 1,978 damage for every tick of damage that an enemy is present inside of that pool. However, this pool only exists for about 4 seconds, and through testing, it was actually difficult to get enemies to walk through it. Now, let me also say that with Lost Signal, it's unlikely you're going to take full advantage of this effect, as most of the enemies in the stasis pools will die around the same time. But it is something that's present there. What you're really going to be able to take advantage of are artifact mods like Overcharged Armory, weapons with Dealer's Choice, Radiolaria Transposer, Collective Purpose, Sundering Origin traits. All of these are always overcharged when you have that modifier active, which is beautiful because there's not any artifact mods for grenade launchers. But with this particular artifact mod, you're just tacking on an extra 25% more damage. We also have Logic Reductor. This artifact mod reads that weapons with the Radiolaria Transposer Origin perk deal increased damage to Vex. Also extends the duration of the Radiolaria pools created by Radiolaria Transposer. And the time extension here is about 4 seconds. This brings our total lifetime of these Radiolaria pools to 8 seconds in total. Now you can also see here that each tick of damage against Vex is 2,447 damage, which is pretty nice. This is a 23% buff to your Radiolaria pools, specifically against Vex. But hell, if you're playing the seasonal activity, or I guess the episodes activity, you're pretty much going up against non-stop Vex. Now I think context is important, which is why we're going to be comparing Lost Signal right now to other special grenade launchers, including Witherhoard. And I know some of you are going to say comparing a legendary GL to an exotic is a bit unfair, but these are really the only two of its kind, which is why we got to compare it. Now looking at the damage here at Carl, Lost Signal does 988 damage on impact of each individual grenade in the volley, meaning if you land all 5, your direct impact damage will be 4,940. Now the pools on the ground don't stack with each other, meaning an enemy is only going to take damage from one pool at a given time. If you look at our footage here, each tick of damage is dealing 2,535 damage with 21 ticks in total. That means the total damage of each pool is 53,235 over a 5-second lifespan. Now this puts us at a DPS value here against Carl of 11,635. Now if we look at Witherhoard for comparison, it has an impact damage of 2,191. Now something to keep in mind regarding direct impact with Witherhoard is that it causes higher tick damage to the target that it made contact with. And knowing that, we can see here that the tick damage after direct impact is 7,288. Now there's 17 ticks of damage before Witherhoard wears off. This means that across a 10-second lifespan, that gives us a total damage of 123,896. That's actually a DPS value of 12,390. Now that's specifically for tick damage if you directly impact the target. If we look at just the pool on the ground, that number will look a little bit smaller, but it ticks faster. Witherhoard's pool damage clocks in at 3,644, and if the enemy stays present for the full duration of the ground pool, they will take 15 ticks of damage, putting us at a total of 54,660 over a 4-second lifespan, giving us a DPS value of 13,665. Now, unfortunately with these numbers, and because Lost Signal can't latch onto a single target, Witherhoard here is still clearly the winner. Additionally, while on paper it seems like you could spread a volley out with Lost Signal, in practice, it's kind of difficult to do. You often end up with some too spread out, leaving you with a few ineffective pulls. Now, I know many of you are going to ask, Cross, why do all of this when there are literally wave-frame grenade launchers that exist? You want to add clear? Just use Forbearance. We're looking at our damage here against Carl. A single wave from Forbearance deals 24,698 damage. Keep in mind, this is equivalent to standing in our Lost Signal stasis pool for 2 seconds, but that wave hits across a larger range. And despite chain reaction being nerfed on specials, it's still good at what it's supposed to do for these special wave frames, and that's clearing ads. And then comparing it to more single shot, heavy damage dealing GLs, like Mountaintop, for example. Mountaintop does 52,557 damage against Carl. Lightweight frames do 33,696 damage under the same conditions, with our double fire frames dealing 43,208 damage. I know on paper Lost Signal from a single shot is outperforming these other grenade launchers, but you have to remember those GLs deal that damage instantly, where Lost Signal does this over a period of 5 seconds. Additionally, unlike Witherhoard, where you could double stack pulls when you land a direct Witherhoard shot and a pull under the enemy, you can't do do that with Lost Signal. The damage per tick remains the same, regardless of how many pulls are on the enemy. Now, also during our testing, we found that for some reason, as these damage ticks would go off, it was a common issue to see large enemies like Carl get staggered out of the pool, which is what you don't want. Anytime an enemy leaves the pool, it's a major damage loss. Now, keep in mind, all of these damage values that we're presenting to you are at base. We're not including one for all. We're not throwing in damage perks. We're simply giving you what these weapons look like at base. And I still believe the God roll for Lost Signal is auto-loading holster or lead from gold with one for all. I think that combination is a solid one. With all that being said though, this is an incredibly unique grenade launcher. And there's one thing to be said about Final Shape. Bungie has given us unique weapons. I have to give credit where credit is due. And the fact is, Bungie gave us a legendary Witherhoard. And I would say in most content, it will perform pretty solidly. Unfortunately, the more difficult the content becomes, the more flaws you will start to see. We've had moments in Grandmaster Excision and even during the day one raid where enemies will just simply walk out of the stasis pools. Or even more annoyingly, they will stagger out of the pools. And it's devastating when that happens. This weapon really demands whatever you're shooting to stand still. However, in game modes like Onslaught, where enemies are moving towards a central location, it actually performs well. You're able to consolidate enemies and group them into those pools. But anything with open spaces, Lost Signals will struggle. What I will say is I hope to see more of this archetype with even crazier perks. I love the idea of an incandescent solar area denial grenade launcher. That sounds crazy, but that's the kind of fantasy that I hope Bungie leans into. The ability to shoot off, get some pulls down, kill some enemies, proc explosions with incandescent. We'll see if Bungie actually gives it to us. Well, fellas and ladies, thank you all for coming and watching, and as always,
slap that like button like your mama told you right.